Of All Australia Netball, Marg Putris.
The most important of the round-robin pool matches came on day one, when last year's 4 Open semi-finalists hit the court. In the first match, 1994 runners-up South Australia took to the boards against third-seeded Queensland. Despite the recent retirement of Australian captain Michelle Filkey, the South Australians still boasted a formidable lineup. National squad members Borlase and Avellino were at the shooting end. Abbott, Grant and Washington were across the mid-court, and Kath Harvey partnered Australian teammate Sarah Sutter at the back. Shooter Borlase had taken over from Filkey as captain. No Vicky Wilson for Queensland as the ace Aussie shooter recuperates from a knee injury sustained at the Worlds in July. In her place, Michelle Tollinaire, at 192 centimetres, the tallest player in the event. Accompanying her in the circle was van der Waal. The Maroons began with Moore, Bruce and Liso across the centre, with Millard and Garrett at the back. From the first centre pass of the match, the fluid attack of South Australia was in evidence, with the ball passing through 5 sets of hands as they pushed it into the circle. Avellino made it 1-0. Queensland responded immediately, but tactically it was a revealing approach, with van der Waal lobbing a high ball over the defence to Tollinaire, who grabbed her own rebound to even it up. After 5 minutes, there was only a goal the difference, but the second 5 minutes of the quarter was all South Australia. Avellino on her way to 80% for the quarter. In this move, Grant rips it to Avellino, who finds Jenny Borlase at the post. And the novice captain nails it on her way to 12 from 15 for the quarter. As a worried Vicky Wilson looked on, South Australia led 20-9 at the first break.
It is now looking good. It looks like we've established some fluency, some understanding, but it's still going to take some time for us to build that. So don't expect that it's just going to happen and we can let the ball go. Continue to be aware of what we're looking for every time we bring the ball down, okay? Think about the structure all of the time, the balance of what we're looking for.
Queensland made some changes in the break, with Karen Clark replacing Kirsten Moore. Clark went to centre, with Tracy Bruce moving up to wing attack. It didn't matter to South Australia. Here, Sutter fakes her throw-in, allowing Grant to pirouette and outmanoeuvre her opponent before hurling it to Borlase, who finds Avellino. Queensland had their chances, but poor finishing and an inability to consistently take rebounds was proving fatal. After blitzing the first 5 minutes of the quarter by 7 goals to 2, South Australia maintained the standard. They continued to sweep down the court and with deadly finishing led 36-16 at the long break. Plenty of replacements for South Australia in the third quarter, with Trudy Gardner coming on at wing defence. Peter Squire took over from Sutter at goalkeeper and made some nice moves early. Whilst up front, Marissa Romeo replaced Avellino at goal attack and soon made her mark. The South Aussies totally dominated this stanza of the match and stretched their lead to 30 goals by the end of it. They bagged 17-7 for the quarter.
Looking at our momentum, if we're going to use the scoreboard as a gauge of that, we've had a 29 first quarter, 16-7 and then a 17-6. So there's been no hiccup in terms of our momentum, our scoring power, and also the defence intensity. We've kept them down to single figures every quarter.
And coach Pat Micken had every reason to be pleased at the end of the final quarter as well, with her side outscoring Queensland by 17 goals to 5 in that period. At the final whistle, 1994 runners-up South Australia had demolished Queensland 70 goals to 28. After the match, we spoke with Queensland's non-playing captain Vicky Wilson and South Australia's Jenny Borlase. We began by asking Wilson about her knee injury.
I'm very happy with the progress of my knees, mate. It's only been 5 weeks since I've had the operation and everything's going according to plan, so I just have to be very patient and I'm sure it's all going to come together by March next year.
Vicky Wilson is a big factor in the Queensland side and they will certainly miss her today, although her replacement today was very good also, and they have got some depth there and some talent for the future. But once again, Vicky is a very talented player and very difficult to replace, so I guess that was good for South Australia today.
Queensland's performance tonight was really quite disappointing. We really allowed South Australia to dominate right from the word go, and they were just too fast for us all over the court. But hopefully we can regather tonight and come back stronger for the later matches.
Yes, there was a big difference in the score today, 42 goals, and we were really pleased with the way we played. We were really aiming to produce a good foundation for the rest of the tournament. It's only early days at the moment, and the ball moved very swiftly down the court, and we worked very hard in defence, which are both of the aims, or both the goals which we were aiming to achieve today, and we did that very well.
South Australia played very well. I was particularly impressed with their transition play, their ability to bring the ball down court very quickly And Jenny Borlays and Natalie Avellino, as always, were just deadly accurate in the circle and a handful for any defender.
There obviously are a couple of threats in the tournament, and I see both of those in New South Wales and Victoria. Very competitive sides and strength all over the court. So once again, South Australia is going to have to play at their very best to be able to beat both of those teams during the tournament. But of course, we're quite quietly confident that we'll be able to do that.
And that brought the eagerly awaited clash between title holders New South Wales and Victoria to the centre court. From a New South Wales squad of 10 containing 4 attack-end specialists, coach Margaret Corbett opted for Cusack and Wag up front. Sue Kenny, Carissa Dalwood and Sharon Finnan made up the centre court, with Liz Ellis, player of the match in July's World Championship final, partnering Keely Devry at the back. For Victoria, Southby and Arnott were in the circle. Benison and Australian stars McInnes and O'Donnell were in the mid-court, with Liz Taverner and Janine Lynch at the back. Like South Australia in the earlier match, Victoria were also sporting a new coach in Lisa Alexander. The Victorians were the first to score through Eloise Southby after a brilliant pass from Danny Arnott. This move set the tone for the first quarter. Arnott was superb in attack, quick to pick up any loose ball and fire it to her shooting partner. Southby shot 8 from 8 for the stanza. At the other end of the court, tight defensive work from Lynch, Taverner and McInnes was pressuring the New South Wales attack, causing overly ambitious and wild play. In attack, Victoria were pretty much doing as they liked, although Devry and Ellis were trying to sandbag the flow. Both Arnott and Southby were scoring freely, able to shake off any close marking. Their efforts were helped by sensational ball movement. This incredible sequence by the Victorians probably best exemplifies the brutal brilliance of their first 15 minutes. From O'Donnell's centre pass, the ball hits another 7 sets of hands before it's buried for the goal. All up, the home side had 20 scoring opportunities in this quarter and converted 16. They led by 9 at the break. The Victorian charge continued in the second quarter as they grabbed the match in both hands. The quality of their attack end was matched by defenders Lynch and Taverner, who were always in the face of their opponents and showed some exceptional aerial abilities. When New South Wales could get the ball, they began to show flashes of what is expected of them. Here they tear down the court before getting it to Nikki Cusack to finish. However, Victoria still had all the answers, and although the first 5 minutes of the quarter was tight score-wise, the Vics managed to double the score of their opponents for the period, taking it 14-7. At half-time, they were up by 30 goals to 14, and New South Wales needed a miracle. The potential miracle turned out to be the replacement of Wag, who'd shot 42% for the first half, with Joe Morgan, along with swapping Liz Ellis and Devry at the break.
Switched you two. Now, what I want you to do, never mind the fancy stuff. It's one-on-one the whole time, hands over, keeping her out, just keep her out. She's got too much, she's getting too much confidence.
Back on court, shooter Morgan made the most of it and assisted her side to score the first 3 of the quarter. Lifting their tempo and intensity, New South Wales took control of the game and grabbed the period by 15-8. Victoria led 38-29 as they turned for home. The final quarter was unbelievable as New South Wales chased an impossible victory. After 5 minutes, they cut the lead from 9-7. After 10 minutes, they'd shaved it a further 2 goals. Miraculously, with under a minute left on the clock, the Victorians were up 44-43. It all came down to this sensational final drive down court. From the back, Ellis got it to Finnan, back to Ellis, onto Dalwood, then Finnan again, who hoisted it to Morgan. The ball dived through the net half a second too late for the title holders, and Victoria had their win 44-43. After the match, we spoke to both captains about what turned out to be an exhilarating contest.
I think everyone came out really strong and confident right from the very first whistle, strong onto the ball, driving down court, backing each other up. I think what was really positive was the way that we chased up those loose balls. We were the first ones there. So, yeah, we had a great start to the game.
Yeah, well, we're down by 16 half-time, so we certainly had to do something. And we brought Joe Morgan into goal shooter and worked on the Sydney Electricity attack lineup because our New South Wales team hasn't had that much match practice in the lead-up to Nationals, and we really don't strike a hard team like Victoria normally in the first game, and we normally lead into it and work into the Nationals and hopefully play our best at the end. So, you know, it was a bit of a shock, and we did come good at the end, so, you know, we're pretty happy, even though we got off to a disappointing start.
Yeah, Victoria, we really wanted to go out there and be strong and positive for each other, go in there hard, chase everything up, back each other up to the hilt, because if we do that, we're in there ahead of everybody else.
Well, I think that we've got to look at you know, our play and see what happened. I think, well, it looked like we were underdone. Our timing was out, we made unforced errors, we weren't combining well, we didn't have enough talk on court, we didn't have enough encouragement. You know, there was a lot of things lacking, and that's unlike us. So we'll definitely have to look at those in training, and I'm sure we'll be training in the morning, and work on those in the next 2 games.
Obviously, New South Wales is the competition leaders at the moment, the measuring stick of the competition with its success so far. South Australia obviously have a lot of strength there with their national representatives and the young ones they've got in the lineup as well. So they're going to be our 2 main rivals, and but you know, we're looking forward to each time we step on court to really build on our previous performances.
Well, we always thought Victoria would be a hard team to play, and obviously South Australia is going to be difficult. We'll just have to watch the teams during the week, but you know, teams pull out extra in the semis and finals, and you know, we've just got to work on our game, make sure that we're playing well, and you know, each game is a goal instead of looking and saying we're going to make the semis and the finals.
Those matches were the pick of the pool games held over the first 3 days. The host state finished top of Pool A ahead of New South Wales, the Northern Territory and Tasmania. South Australia was the dominant state in Pool B, then followed Queensland, Western Australia and the ACT. There were different groupings in the under-21s, but again Victoria headed up Pool A from WA, Queensland and the Territory. New South Wales toppled South Australia in Pool B. The ACT and Tasmania were 3rd and 4th. That brings us to the first of our crossover pool matches, played on Wednesday evening, with New South Wales drawn to meet their old northern rivals, Queensland. In something of an experiment up front, Katrina Wagg was given the goal shooter's bib, Cusack goal attack. The mid-court looked familiar with stalwarts Kenny, Dalwood and Finnan. In defence, Keely Devry started playing out, with Liz Ellis back at goalkeeper. Queensland coach Liz White opted for the 7, which started against South Australia, with Tollenaire and Vanderwall sharing the shooting. The mid-court of Kirsten Moore and Tracy's Bruce and Liso is experienced, but would be well tested by the Blues mid-3. Sally Millard and Kylie Garrett were again the circle defenders. The question for Queensland remained the same. Could they aim up and beat top opposition without their injured Aussie Vicky Wilson? The opening moments were promising, the apparent confidence of the Maroons epitomised by Michelle Tollenaire's first long bomb over the tall New South Wales defence. But the Blues stopped Queensland in their tracks, scoring the next 7 goals. Wagg working hard in defence as well as attack and drawing players away from Cusack. She relished the freedom, shooting 100% for the quarter. It wasn't an attack end that New South Wales were used to running, but often the fluency of the build-up was such that Wagg and Cusack had it handed to them on a plate, and they were dining out. Wagg, a highly respectable 12 from 16, 75% for the quarter. If it meant going back to go forward, Queensland were prepared to do it, as the first 15 minutes became an exercise in damage control. They went to the break trailing 19-7 and facing a hiding if they couldn't find a more direct route to the circle.
You come up to cover there, you leave Carissa free. Then what happens is they take the pass down to Carissa and she gets under you to the circle. You two have got to keep both of those feeders off the circle, because as soon as they're on the circle, they can swing it. Initially,
Liz White's words seemed to go unheeded as Cusack and Wagg slotted home the first 5 of the second quarter to open up a 17-goal lead. Although looking more like victims than champions, they started to turn it around. Tracy Bruce working tirelessly to set up her shooters, and the roll of the ball finally beginning to go their way. Tollenaire and Vanderwall both bagged 7 from 8 as Queensland took the second term 14-10 and only trailed by 8 at half-time. A taxing but enjoyable contest.
I thought it was Lizzie, that's why I went hard, because I thought she'd come out and pick it off. Our job is to go out in the court and play our game, not get sucked into trying to play rules. Let's play ours, stick to our guns, pull the ball in, and Kyle, you know you've got to be on ball. It's not right, you just sit tight, you won't get up.
Margaret Corbett made changes aplenty, pushing Sharon Finnan back to goal defence, benching Keely Devry and bringing on Raylene Mullaney at wing defence. Joe Morgan came on at goal shooter, Wagg moved out to goal attack and Cusack got the rest. Unfazed, Queensland pressed on, reducing the margin to 7 and sowing the seeds of doubt in the minds of the title holders. New South Wales then assumed a steady, if unspectacular style, and the added height of Morgan in the circle did present some problems for Millard and Garrett. Queensland would get no closer. As she did in the second half against Victoria, Joe Morgan stood tall and tough and began to finish off her tiring opponents in the last quarter. As Queensland heads went down, New South Wales played some first-class end-to-end stuff, but really only when the sting went out of the defence. Mullaney fitted in well, And perhaps Morgan's success posed more questions than it answered for her coach, as she struggles to nail down a definitive starting seven. A 63-45 win to New South Wales, the result, if not the form they were looking for.
We've been trying to run as many lineups as we can. I mean, typical New South Wales, we don't seem to be really settling into a set routine until pretty late in the tournament, so this year's no different. I think we're still taking a lot of time to settle. We haven't had a lot of match play before we've come away, so we really need to run as many different lines as we can.
We expected Joe Morgan to play in goals, and we were expecting the height in the shooting circle. It's something that we knew we had to overcome, and I suppose we were a bit disadvantaged because we're not as tall as they are. But no, I think it was pretty down pat what we planned that we'd play against.
We had a terrible start against Victoria the other day, and so we're determined to have a fairly strong start. I don't think we really thought much beyond that though, so we were pretty pleased with our start, but our second quarter wasn't so strong. So, you know, I think we just need to make sure we concentrate for the whole game. I think that our biggest problem is really focusing in for the whole game. We know we can do it. The problem is we just tend to drift off and get a bit slack.
The first quarter was not so good on our behalf. I think we were a bit bamboozled, and we just didn't play strong enough from the start. And second quarter though, we picked up, and I mean, that was our best quarter. If we could just play like that for the whole game, we'd be laughing, but unfortunately we let them come into the game a little bit too much.
In Wednesday's other significant cross-pool match, 1994 runners-up South Australia faced off against Victoria. The home side took to the court with youngsters Eloise Southby and Danny Arnott in the circle. The tough and consistent Shelley O'Donnell was at centre, flanked by Bennison and McInnes. In defence stood the willing and skillful duo of Janine Lynch and Liz Taverner. South Australia's lineup contained no surprises either, with Australian shooters Borlase and Avellino in charge at the scoring end. Across the middle were Abbott, Grant and Nikki Washington, with Kath Harvey and Sarah Sutter in defence. These two tough and uncompromising outfits put on a sensational feast for gourmets of the game, and after 3 minutes it was 2 apiece. Victoria have shown throughout these championships that they're willing and able to explode when the moment requires, and this attacking raid left the crowd in no doubt that the moment was now. Only 4 players touched the ball, but there were 8 passes in the sequence before Southby nailed it on her way to 95% for the match. And if anybody was thinking that they'd seen the move of the week, they only had to wait another 50 seconds before this glittering jewel appeared over the horizon. Originating in the centre court, this raid displayed the sort of passing, vision, control and teamwork that coaches must dream about. Arnott dropped it in on her way to 4 from 5 for the quarter. Despite moves like that, the South Australians held firm, and with perhaps less flair at times, they kept the score rolling along. At the first break, it was 13-10 to the Crow Eaters.
First of all, someone said the word perseverance and persistence. That was exactly right. We stayed solid when it took us a little while to settle under the intensity, but we stayed in there solid and controlled. And we worked it. We just got a momentum and we got a flow. We got that sense of control about what we were doing as the quarter progressed.
And as the next quarter progressed, South Australia once again got the jump on their opponents. From the sideline throw-in, Harvey, Abbott and Avellino combined to give Captain Borlase the opportunity. Due to Victorian defensive pressure, however, they weren't having it all their own way, as SA coach Pat Micken was becoming aware. The Victorians didn't shirk it in attack either, and after being 7 behind at one stage, were only 4 down at the break. This reality was obviously a pleasant one for their coach. Howie came on for Bennison at wing attack for the Vics, while for South Australia, nobody came on after the permitted 5-minute break. The Vics took advantage. With their opponents now back on court, the home side kept up the momentum, and although it took a little longer to get the ball into the circle, they took the first 5 minutes by 6-5. The third quarter was tight throughout, as they pretty much went goal for goal. Here the South Australians combine well through the centre, and Borlase finishes. However, at the end of the third quarter, which the Vics took by 16 goals to 15, the South Australian lead was only 3, 42-39. There were only 3 goals in the first 3 minutes of the final stanza, as good defence and uncertain finishing combined. Of the shooters on court, it was Victoria's Southby who stood tall with 7 from 7. Her partner Arnott managed 4 from 7 for the period. Borlase and Avellino were both off target with a team total of 7 from 12. It was fitting that Southby should nail the final goal to give victory to the Vics by 50-49. After the match, we spoke to Shelley O'Donnell and Kath Harvey about their impressions of the match.
Yeah, it was physical, as South Australian Victorian games always are, and it's obviously very disappointing for us to lose by such a close margin, considering we had the game in the bag for most of the match.
It was very tough. It's one of the, well, obviously one of the toughest matches that we'll have all tournament. It was important for us to get through it with a win. It puts it in a good position going into finals. So we were very happy with that performance.
We knew it would be close. Victoria are a very good side this year, and we didn't underestimate them, but we thought if we could get our game together and have all 7 players playing well at once, that we would win. And I guess for most of the game we thought we did, but, you know, credit to Victoria for coming back at us.
We were confident. After our start against New South Wales in the first game, I felt that, you know, we've got it in us. We just have to be consistent and finish the whole game, play 4 quarters. So we were confident going into it, and you know, it got a bit tight towards, you know, the halfway. It showed a lot of guts and determination for our players to get back into the game when we were about 8 goals down. And to the girls' credit, we've come off with a win and we're very happy.
I guess maintaining control when we came on at half-time and we had to stand on the side of the court and Victoria scored a goal without any opposition. We could have lost our bundle then, and we maintained composure. And that was the positive side, and the negative side was not being able to maintain that composure in the last few minutes.
I think everyone was just pouncing on all the loose balls. I think, you know, they'll get it going in there hard and strong and really not letting any of the players sort of push and shove them around, and I felt that that's, you know, we held really strong. So I felt that that was our, you know, our performance. Our goal is shot very well in the crucial time, which was excellent.
Their consistency. There are times where we thought we were going to run away with it, and they just pegged away until they gained control in the last couple of minutes and hung on. So it was a credit to them considering they're a young side.
They obviously move it very well down the court. They're very hard to stop, especially through the mid-court. Simone and myself had a lot to deal with, but we just sort of kept persisting. Obviously they've got their shooters that have been playing well together and have played for years together. So I think we just have to try and break up their attack end. Their defence end's, you know, exceptional as well, so they're pretty much an all-round, you know, excellent side. So it was just great to sort of break through their side.
To day 5 and the first clash between last year's champions and runners-up, New South Wales and South Australia. With these teams almost guaranteed to meet in a semi-final 24 hours later, neither coach hesitated in fielding her bench players. Cox joined Cusack in the shooting duties. Mullaney gained a start at wing defence to join Kenny and Dalwood in the mid-court, while Debry and Ellis were retained at the back. Pat Micken did likewise, resting her skipper, Jenny Borlase, to give Marissa Romeo a run at goal attack. Abbott, Grant and Trudy Gardner made for a new-look mid-court, and the circle defenders, Peter Squire from the Australian under-21 squad and Kath Harvey. A nice 21st birthday present for Marissa Romeo to be allowed to mix it with the best. And Trudy Gardner would also be looking to impress against Sue Kenny, the New South Wales skipper. At 19, Catherine Cox is the youngest of the Blues Open squad, but comes in at a handy 187 centimetres. And Raylene Mullaney had a birthday this week, her 23rd on Tuesday. She was reminded early, though, that risky passes into the circle will be gobbled up by Australian defender Kath Harvey. She set South Australia going forward in a major hurry. Grant to Romeo, and they had the authoritative start they were seeking. New South Wales responded in kind, though. A strong lead out from Cox, who then drove to the post to receive the feed, falling out of court, but still converted. It was 5-all after 5 minutes, but with Cox on the end of some dream feeds like this bounce effort from Cusack, a margin began to build. Cox 8 from 10 for the quarter. Ellis and Debry combined well at the other end to squeeze out the shooting errors and snaffle the rebounds. And there was no shortage of on-court aggro, even between Aussie teammates Ellis and Avellino, committed opponents in this one. The first quarter stoush, a points decision to New South Wales, 16-12.
Okay, we could go through these diagrams, but there's no point in that because we've just got to instill some discipline in terms of not running on and not stepping on one foot, okay? Just plain basic stuff.
For a short time, SA did tidy up their act. Romeo sweet with her first 2 shots. But as Ellis and Avellino got another taste of the floor, South Australia's hopes disappeared through it, with Cox and Cusack outgunning their opponents 15-9 for the quarter. With the Blues up by 10, it was all change at half-time. Wagg and Finnan on at wing attack and wing defence. And Jenny Borlase joined the fray at goal shooter, Sarah Sutter at goalkeeper, and Nikki Washington wing defence. But Borlase enjoyed no more freedom than those who'd gone before. and the South Australian machine only rarely spluttered into life. For someone grabbing an opportunity with both hands, Catherine Cox did some of her best work with one. New South Wales gave no ground in the third. This was not a match going to plan for Pat Micken. Joe Morgan came on for Cox in the last, underlining the Blues' extraordinary shooting depth. And Wag showed her known versatility at wing attack, setting up Cusack for what loomed as a comfortable win. There looked to be some tiring players out there in a 57-45 victory to New South Wales. Understandable from those who'd also been to Birmingham.
I felt pretty flat, and we had our state league to go into and then thinking of nationals now. So, yeah, it's been a tough time in those weeks, but got through it okay.
I found it a little bit hard to pick myself up and really start my own personal training again. But I had a bit to look forward to. We had the state league finals when we got home, and we've got now the Qantas Nationals. So I knew that I had to pick myself up and start training again. But it was a little bit hard after all the excitement of the World Championships.
The last of the crossover pool matches to have a bearing on the order of Open semi-finalists was between unbeaten Victoria and Queensland. Victoria needed to win to take the #1 semi-final spot, but began with only 3 of their regular starting side. Croato and Bryant were the attack end. Benison, O'Donnell and Peter Kennedy made up the centre court, whilst Nikki Richardson made a surprising appearance at goal defence, partnering Janine Lynch at keeper. For Queensland, Tolinair and Vanderwall were the shooters. Moore, Bruce and Leanne Matthews were in the middle, and Sally Millard teamed with Kylie Garrett in defence. The new-look Victorian outfit didn't exactly set the boards on fire as they struggled to get to know each other in the first quarter. In fact, it was Queensland who made the early running, and after 2.5 minutes of the period, they'd built a 4-0 lead. Both the Maroon shooters were on target, and against some fairly loose defensive efforts from the Victorians, Michelle Tolinair was on her way to 7 from 8 for the quarter, whilst Amanda Vanderwall took advantage of good lead-up play to bag 3 from 3. However, the Victorians regathered and took the second 5 minutes by 7 goals to 2. New shooter Diana Croato was proving her worth and shot 11 from 13 for the stanza. At the first break, it was 12-10 to the Vics. The second quarter turned out to be a very even contest, with both sides occasionally showing some flair. Here, the Vics moved the ball around the circle before O'Donnell gets it to Croato, who goals. For Queensland, the main method of attack was the high ball into Tolinair, and she rarely let them down. On this occasion, Sally Millard passes to Karen Clark, who'd replaced Bruce at the break. Clark gets it to Vanderwall, back to Clark, and finally over the top to Tolinair. In general terms, though, it was a scrappy affair, and as the Queensland players headed for the break, trailing 26-22, the Victorians were about to make some changes. Coach Lisa Alexander pulled Bryant, replacing her with Danny Arnott. At the defence end, Liz Taverner came on with Benison getting an early mark and Richardson moving into the centre court. These changes certainly had the desired effect as the Vics cast off their lethargic first half display and returned to the crisp, free-flowing outfit of earlier matches. In an incredible display of precision netball, they eventually took the period by 23 goals to 4 to lead 49-26 going into the fourth quarter. With the match well and truly decided and the #1 position in the semi-finals theirs, the Victorians eased off in the final term. The 15 minutes became not much more than a practice run as they ran in another 17 goals to their opponents' 11. Final whistle. The only unbeaten side in the championship had built a winning scoreline of 66 goals to 37. So the final standings in the Open division after the preliminary rounds of the championship were Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, Queensland, Western Australia, the ACT, the Northern Territory and Tasmania. That meant that Victoria would play Queensland in one semi-final, whilst in a replay of last year's decider, New South Wales would meet South Australia in the other. In the under-21s, South Australia took the #1 spot, followed by Victoria, New South Wales, Western Australia, the ACT, Queensland, Tasmania and the Northern Territory. The semis in that division would be between South Australia and Western Australia, with Victoria taking on New South Wales.